For years, Mr. McGreely dreamed of planting a garden. He dreamed of getting his hands dirty, of growing yummy vegetables, and of gobbling them all up. But he never once tried it until...
"This spring," said Mr. McGreely, "this spring, by golly, I'm going to plant a garden."
So he hoed, and he sowed, and he watched his garden grow. Lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes.
"Yum, yum, yummy," said Mr. McGreely. "I'll soon fill my tummy with crisp, fresh veggies."
But one night, when the sun went down and the moon came up, 3 hungry bunnies appeared. Tippy, 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 pat! Muncha, muncha, muncha! The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his nod sprouts, he was angry, so he built a small wire fence all around his vegetable garden.
"There," he declared, "no bunny can get in my garden now."
And the sun went down, and the moon came up. Tippy, tippy, pat! Spring hurdle, dash, dash, dash! Muncha, muncha, muncha! The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his nibble leaves and nod sprouts, he was really angry, so he built a tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. "Humph," he huffed. "Those flop ears will never get over it. No bunny can get into my garden now." And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 pat! Dig, scrabble, scratch, scratch, scratch! Spring hurdle, dash, dash! Muncha, muncha, muncha! The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his chewed stems and his nibbled leaves, he was really, really angry. So he made a deep wet trench outside the tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence all around his vegetable garden. "Ha!" he snorted. "Those pufftails can't get under it. They can't get over it. No bunny can get into my garden now." And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 pat! Dive, spattle, splash, splash, splash! Dig, scrabble, scratch, scratch! Spring hurdle, dash, dash, dash! Muncha, muncha, muncha! The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his chomped blossoms, his chewed stems, his nibbled leaves, and his gnawed sprouts, he was furious. So he hammered and blocked and sawed and stalked and drilled and filled and tapped and locked, and he built a huge, enormous thing before the deep, wet trench outside the tall wooden wall behind the small wire fence, all around his vegetable garden. "I've outsmarted those twitch whiskers for sure," he exclaimed. "They can't get through it. They can't get under it. They can't get over it. No bunny, no way, no how can get into my garden now." And the sun went down, and the moon came up, and tippy, 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 stop! The 3 hungry bunnies looked and smelled and touched the huge, enormous thing before them. Tippy, 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 pat. The bunnies hopped away. Sad. The next morning when Mr. McGreely saw his untouched vegetables, he was happy! "I beat the bunnies, I beat the bunnies." He whooped and did a jiggly-wiggly victory dance, and he climbed over, jumped across, squeezed between, crawled under until he reached his vegetable garden. "Ah," sighed Mr. McGreely, "at last," smacking his lips. He picked up, pulled up, and gathered lettuce, carrots, peas, tomatoes, and with his basket overflowing with yummy vegetables, he reached inside and muncha, muncha, muncha.